I'm Heather Bhandari, Adjunct Lecturer in Visual Arts, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the Visual Art Department's third lecture of 2022 and the sixth of this academic year. This evening, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Ghost of a Dream, aka Lauren Wass and Adam Eckstrom. Before we go any further, I'd like to begin with a living land acknowledgement. Brown University is built on what is now called College Hill, part of the unceded ancestral homelands of the Narragansett Nation. Indigenous people from many nations near and far live, study, and work in Providence today. The amplification of Native voices and histories is crucial to rectifying the many violent legacies of colonialism, and we gratefully acknowledge the ongoing critical contributions of Indigenous people within this university and across the state, region, and nation. In addition, I'd like to acknowledge that we're connected by a campus that relied on the African slave trade in the Americas, and that there are buildings on campus constructed by enslaved people. These acknowledgements and much more commit us to a lifetime of decolonial and anti-racist work. Tonight I'd like to thank Leslie Bostrom, Chair of Visual Arts, Christine Dodd, Winnie Geyer, CJ Liu, and all of our colleagues at Media Services for facilitating this evening's event. A couple of things to note. First, we kindly ask that you refrain from recording the event. We're gonna take care of that for you, and it will be archived on the Visual Arts website. If you take photos, please tag @BrownVisualArts and @GhostOfADream. Second, after Ghost of a Dream's presentation, there will be a Q&A. So there are two, do I see them? Oh yeah, there are microphones there, and there'll be one right here. So you can just come up and ask your question. They'll also be hanging out for about 10 minutes after, so if anyone wants to come up and ask another question, you are more than welcome. So now I get to welcome Ghost of a Dream, Lauren and Adam. Through this lecture series, we often get to hear one perspective of a solo artist's career. Though we hear about community quite often, I'm so excited to hear from a collaborative duo whose work has spanned over a decade. Their collages, paintings, sculptural works, installations, and videos have a very clear vision merged from two very distinct minds. And often their work pulls in the contributions of many others in their network, whether it be their neighbors in the hamlet of Wassaic, their global network of artist friends, and friends of friends. Engagement is critical to their practice, and I know I've loved interacting with them over this last decade. Now, more formally, I'll read the formal bio. Ghost of a Dream is the collaborative project of Lauren Wass and Adam Eckstrom. They make work about people's hopes and dreams out of the ephemera created trying to attain those aspirations. They began working together in 2007, shortly after getting married, which is also quite interesting, and this collaboration has been their full-time practice ever since. Ghost of a Dream's current solo exhibitions are Tomorrow is Here at the new MAAM Museum of Art in Boston, Aligned by the Sun Through the Revolution at the Ackland Art Museum in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and they will have their next solo exhibition in Paris at Galerie Paris B, State of the Art. Paris B. State of the Art, a recent exhibition including their work, made stops at Crystal Bridges in Arkansas, the Telfair Museum in Savannah, Georgia, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, the Dixon Gallery and Gardens Museum in Memphis, the Frist Center for Visual Arts in Nashville, the Mint in Charlotte, North Carolina. Other recent solo exhibitions include A Devil to Pay at CES Gallery in Los Angeles, the Fair Housing Project at Smack Mellon in Brooklyn, A Good Run of Bad Luck at Binghamton University in New York, and Gone the Sun at Galerie Paris Beijing in Paris, France. That was a lot. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Ghost of a Dream.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Lauren.
And we go by Ghost of a Dream.
And thank you, Heather.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. That was
very nice and embarrassing.
Yeah. The reason we call ourselves Ghost of a Dream, like Heather said, is we make our work about people's hopes and dreams out of the ephemera they create trying to attain those hopes and dreams.
And actually, we started our practice years ago back here in Rhode Island, in Providence, Rhode Island, a few years after we graduated from RISD in their MFA program. We came back and started working here.
like, we got married, right? We were
Yes,
living in Ridgewood,
we did.
Queens. We started collecting lottery tickets on the floor, on the ground while walking around outside our studio. And then we were offered, Lauren was offered
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
No?
Oh.
So anyway, I was offered a winter session class where we had 10 students all come together to help make a really big project. And so we had been picking up these lottery tickets and thinking about what they meant. They were like somebody's lost dream. There's this little piece of paper, but it represented something that they were trying to get, something they were trying to dream about, this hope for a new car, or a dream vacation, or a new house, or some way to better their lives.
So we did some research about what people actually do buy when they win the lottery, and the three things they buy are a car, a vacation, or a home. So we decided our first collaboration together would be a giant project from these tickets we were collecting on the ground.
And this is a store that was on the Massachusetts-Rhode Island border that we would drive up to almost every night while we were teaching here and raid their trash cans and their dumpsters and sort through the cigarette butts to get all of the lottery tickets.
And we gave students homework assignments to go and collect them, and I think the student who got the most, we gave a drawing, right? But in the end, what we made with our students was this, our first piece in the trilogy, which is the dream car. And we made it with $39,000 worth of losing lottery tickets, which in effect is what that car cost that year. It was a 2008. And then in theory, it's what we sold it to the museum for.
They got a discount, but so this is called Dream Ride 789, and that was the name of one of the lottery tickets that we used. And these are all the different angles of the car, and you can see on this this bottom slide over here that you can sort of see through the structure of the car. It was just a shell, and we made that way very purposefully so you could see that, you know, it was just the facade of something. And this is actually how we came up with our name, Ghost of a Dream. This at first was the title of this piece, but then once we made this piece, we decided that we needed a moniker because we thought that we would both be continuing on our own careers separately, because it's amazing to work with somebody, but it's also very challenging. But then this sort of pathway just opened up really organically and kind of took over what we ended up, you know, following through with in our career.
And choosing that moniker, it constructed a set of rules for how we work, and we've continued to work ever since. Like Ghost of a Dream being the fact that all our materials are recycled. We're always making work about people's hopes and dreams, and there's a third part to the rules.
Well, and it's all material that's been used and handled in some way. So to us,
and imbued with an energy.
Yeah, so to us it's really important. Like when we started picking up those first lottery tickets, we started thinking about like how each one held somebody's signature in a way. Like everyone scratches it really differently, and everyone, like each piece was somebody's signature and held that energy somehow. So that's something that we continue to think about as we move through different materials. This is baby Adam sorting through lottery cards, and we would have to organize everything by specific cards and colors and the patterns that they make.
And that's how we create palettes for making these objects out of the lottery tickets, but then we've carried it through to kind of every time we collect the material, we organize it. And whether it's a video, a drawing, a sculpture, or a collage, we line up repeats of these objects to draw our lines, both theoretically and physically, right? Mm-hmm. This is our dream vacation, which we made out of $29,000 worth of losing lottery tickets. And we're asked by Deitch Projects, which was a gallery in New York City at the time. They had a yearly parade. And so we made this palm tree dream vacation that Lauren was going to sit in.
No, Adam was going to be in a bikini.
One of us was going to sit on a bikini on the tube, and it was going to roll down Broadway. But oddly enough, that we made this like palm tree, and then there was a hurricane that year in New York, so it got canceled.
And the parade got canceled, so it rained on our parade. But it's on wheels and it rolls, and now it lives in Brussels of all places. But it's very funny.
In the middle of a fancy spiral staircase that was built around it.
And so this has, you can see sort of the details. The palm tree bark is made out of pull tabs that we collected from bars and all over the country, actually. And then lottery tickets and
the audio is made from going into the casinos and recording casino sounds and then making this muzak that you hear at like an all-inclusive resort, just like kind of terrible techno that would come out of the speaker.
And then we made our dream home, because that was the third thing that people wanted when they won the lottery. So this is made out of $70,000 worth of losing lottery tickets.
For some reason, we thought we could get a dream home for $70,000.
Yeah, we were naive. You want to go to the next
But we
slide?
chose to make a dining room because it's kind of the room in your home that you entertain. It's where you show yourself. And we made it while we were living in Basel, Switzerland.
We were doing a residency there at the time, and so the lottery tickets come from France, Germany, and Switzerland.
And England.
And England, that's true.
This is...
We made silverware from, the lottery card was called Set for Life, so we thought that would be perfect for our silverware collection.
And there are 2 paintings on the wall. And at the time, there was a big debate about where funds were going from the lottery. A lot of funds were going to the arts. And so a lot of people were protesting, saying, why aren't they going to schools? So we collected a number of tickets from London, from a gallerist in London, and we decided to make 2 paintings, copies of 2 paintings that were purchased with National Heritage Lottery funds. So the paintings were paid for with lottery money.
So this is actually a mosaic that was in a church in Ealing. And then we made our version.
And then this is a Hans Holbein the Younger. Since we're living in Basel, we decided to choose somebody who was historically living there. And that painting was purchased by the National Gallery using lottery funds, and this is our copy.
So from there, we started to make, we wanted to not just do the representational, the representational things that you buy or win. Oh my gosh, sorry. When you win the lottery. And so we started to do more abstract and thinking about like what your brain's feeling when you're trying to win something or when you want something. So this piece is called The End of the Spectrum, and it's also made with lottery tickets.
And kind of building from that, we made a larger piece that was about kind of going through the spectrum, right? But then we wanted to make a piece that was going through the spectrum in the collage and then exploding into the space. So we made this piece at the Facebook offices in New York City and took the lines of the collage and the spectrum and brought it onto the wall and in the floor. So you're actually walking within the collage in theory.
Mm-hmm. And then these are actually made with playing cards that were used at casinos. And so the playing cards can only be used for a certain amount of time in play at casinos before they get sort of damaged or marked somehow. And so from casinos, they're then sent to prisons, and they use prison labor to sort them back out. And then they're sent back to the gift shops to be sold to tourists coming through. And
like we said before, it's like the energy of somebody hoping going into a material is incredibly important to us, the energy in any material we're working with. So this material in particular has kind of 2 layers of a separate group of people putting their hopes into the material before we get our hands on it and then are putting it back together. Sorry, did I cut you off?
That's okay.
Okay.
And this piece is called In Spite of Ourselves, where we end up sitting on a rainbow.
It's a John Prine song title.
Just some details of that.
The next piece is called A Devil to Pay.
And so when we started mining these cards and sort of reading more about their history. We also got really interested in the ideas of the patterns on the carpets in casinos and how they would create these like really mesmerizing spaces where your eyes were just like going wild. And so we got these carpets that were ripped out of sometimes defunct casinos, and then started hanging our playing card collages on top of those and having the rug sort of bisect the walls and go up the walls, and trying to create for us like these really visually stimulating, overloading feelings with patterns on top of patterns, which for us we're doing sort of this op art kind of thing where it was like creating like the sort of like synetic thoughts, that's not the word, but sort of like the way your brain waves are moving when you're excited and trying to create that through pattern.
This is called Counting Flowers on the Wall. I wish we had audio with this because we made this full encompassing room, which is in Wassaic, New York, and it's there's a residency program there that we're a part of. We're the embedded critics there. And there's an amazing exhibition space, and on the top floor is just a singular, very large room. So we made this.
Not very large.
Okay, not very large. It's like 10 meters by 10 meters, or 30 feet by 30 feet. And we made this encompassing room with the carpet and then the collages, and then an a cappella version of singing Counting Flowers on the Wall. Just a couple details. Oh, and a repeat slide. So we've put our talk together both chronologically
A little bit.
and theoretically of people's hopes. We started our collaboration with talking about people's hopes for money, because that's a common hope, and then moved to money and love, and then it moves on as we go through the talk. But these pieces are, this piece is about love and money, the juxtaposition of love and money, and it's made with used lottery tickets and the covers of romance novels.
So we like are always scouring, well, back in the day Craigslist, but now, I don't know, other things like Facebook Marketplace and whatever. But we found this woman who had just thousands and thousands of romance novels.
You want me to skip to that?
What's that?
You want me to skip to her piece?
No.
Okay.
And so we decided to start using these because she spent her whole life like just reading these books, and we were thinking about like what that meant. And so we created this piece that was like sort of like movie sets. They're like the flats that they use in movie sets, and we created this sort of hall of mirrors where you walk in and you're just sort of, there's these moments of infinity reflecting in the mirrors. Some hot and steamy characters.
So that we took most of this woman's collection, which was 1,100 romance novels, and we started thinking about her life and talking to her daughter when she donated us the books. And she was like, my mom pretty much just sat at home and read about love, and it was, it was kind of a sad story talking about reading about love and not actually wanting to leave the house to attain it, and it kind of was synonymous to the losing lottery ticket, trying to get rich quick or trying to find love in an impossible scenario. So we made this piece called A Reason for Being. It kind of became this person's reason for being, and also is the title of the centerpiece of the collage.
And then this piece. So our projects can vary very, very greatly depending on what media we used. And this was a piece that we made called One Life to Live after the television show One Life to Live that was on. It was like a soap opera that was on for over 30 years.
Most people in this room probably haven't had to deal with soap operas, but our parents' generation, and my mother in particular, watched soap operas every day, right? It was part
at 3 p.m.
Yeah, it was part of her reality. It was a midday reality show that wasn't about reality at all. But so we collected all the kiss scenes from.
I Love You.
Oh, I Love You. I'm sorry. 2 different pieces. But all the people saying "I love you" in this 40-year drama of One Life to Live. So sometimes it's people repeating, and you'd walk inside it, and it would crescendo and go a little quieter and crescendo. But you were also physically affected because TVs used to be operate off of magnets. So if you'd step into the center, you'd be standing between 40 different magnets that are electrified, and it was literally sending energy through you, and you could really, like, your whole body
Felt
was
it
just
in
taking it over.
Yeah.
While
And-
people are screaming and crying.
Yeah,
"I
so
love
they were
you."
very dramatic of their "I love yous." You know, sometimes it was really sweet, and sometimes it was, you know, scream "I love you."
And cheesily enough, it was it came up, and we made this exhibition. We made this piece for an exhibition that opened on Valentine's Day. Another hope is success, right? So we made this piece at a gallery in Brussels where we had 10 people help us write the word tragedy 50,000 times. And they started at one end of the room at the top, writing it. You know, we made a template, but writing, so the same person wrote it over and over. So their handwriting would make a line across the room, then the next person, so you could get this really nice line pattern. But the piece is talking about all the tragedies it takes for any one particular triumph, like how hard you have to really try if you want something to fully succeed.
And how there's so many different failures that happen or tragedies that happen along the way to achieve that triumphant moment. The only downfall with this piece is now I feel like you read it and all I see is Trump, but
Yeah, that's problematic.
but it does say triumph.
Do you want me to talk about this piece?
And then this piece is called The Minor Fall and the Major Lift, and it's made out of trophies, some of ours and some of just collected. But trophies are these things that we all work so hard for, you know, and then they end up sitting in your mom's basement covered in dust. And so we made this piece out of the trophies, and from one direction it says triumph, and the other direction it says tragedy.
But the reason we made it for this exhibition is it was in a historic house in Brussels. This gallery, the front half was a Art Deco house in the front, and then a white cube in the back. And this house had all these amazing white Italian marble fireplaces. And we were like, this is the same exact material as our collection of trophy bases. So it's just bringing those two, like, high and low together in such a beautiful way.
And then we started thinking about the artist postcard. So these are all artist postcards.
Which are, in effect, the artist lottery ticket, like a thing. Before Instagram, we had postcards, right? And you'd hand postcards out to a curator you want to put you in another show, or
Somebody that you wanted to write about your work or whatever. But
anybody you wanted to get to go to your show.
you would always end up with just stacks and stacks of postcards afterwards. And I felt like they were always sort of this reminder of all the people that didn't get to go or didn't see the show. They were just this leftover. So this was our collection from like 1 month of going to see art.
It's a collection that from 1 month of art, and the collage was made for a gallery in Copenhagen, and he gave us all the postcards from his.
Oh yeah, so he gave us a bunch of postcards from his gallery as well, from his gallery artists. And so it was really interesting to see during the opening of the show, people would come up and see their own art, like replicated within our art, and just their reaction to it. Some were excited, some not so much. But you know, every piece is sort of cut up and repeated, so it's not, yeah. So it's not copyrightable.
But to follow that dialogue with the artists that were either really happy their image was in it, or questioning, or angry, to follow that up, we were invited to be in a group show with like 50 other artists. So we wrote to all the artists and asked them to send us their used postcards. And then for our piece in that show, we used everybody else's images from the show.
To make our image.
which just kind of upped the dialogue game and around that work.
And then this is a piece that's currently up at the MAAM museum, which is Mass Art's new museum, and it's called Yesterday is Here. And so we took, the museum was previously a couple different smaller galleries, and so we took their 30 years worth of catalogs of all their old shows and recreated this piece in their lobby that's made from all of those old catalogs. So we were trying to think about like how to keep some of that past as the present, and how we guide ourselves through all those past experience to see something new and exciting. It's a corner.
This is a detail of the corner of the room, so you can see how we overlapped. The bottom part are a bunch of parts of book covers shingled on, and then the wall is actually a mixture between a book and a invitation to a Zenobia Bailey piece or show. And so there's kind of a demon in the art world, and it's also a good thing in other ways. It's called the art fair. I don't know if everybody's gone to art fairs and know much about them, but there's art fairs around the world, and they all have different popularities. And we see them as a good thing because a person can go see 10,000 pieces in a day, but at the same time, you actually don't see one artwork ever because you're so bombarded by so much information that you can't really take anything in, right? And so at the same time, everybody ships artwork to that city, so artwork has to go in a truck or fly or however it gets there. It's really wasteful. And then a bunch of artwork comes in a box, and then it gets sold to different people, so different wooden boxes have to be made so all those artworks can go everywhere else. And so at the end of every art fair,
there's so much left over is what he's getting to.
And so Lauren and I used to be art handlers, and we would walk through the art fair, and every time we'd be like, you can build a house out of this. So it's precursor to the next piece, but we've been collecting this detritus from art fairs, and then this piece is taking that detritus and putting it back in the art fairs as its Trojan horse, right? Like taking the garbage from the art fair, putting it back as the thing for sale. This piece is called Center for Convention.
And all the blue lines you see are different kinds of blue tape from different parts of the world. They make their blue tape a little different colors, and so we're using that, and then some like pegboard that we found from some galleries, and all the paintings are done on carpet that they put down every art fair and then rip up, and they're done on the back of crate lids. So we put this back into the gallery or back into the art fair, and then sold stuff out of there as sort of this Trojan horse of like selling the garbage from the thing. And this is at Smack Mellon. This is more about the house. So when we were walking around, we were like, we could build a house with all of this waste because all those crates just get thrown out and smashed and end up in landfills. So
we had an art handling company called Atelier 4 take a truckload of the empty crates at the end of art fair called Freeze, New York, bring us the crates, and then we just ripped all those crates into slats of lumber to make the house, and the edges of the crates to use as 2x4s for the structure of the house, and then to build all the furniture. And then we made this interior that's just overpainted, overhung. Paintings are actually screwed to paintings to kind of emulate how just everything is kind of piled into an art fair booth. And the house is 10 feet by 10 feet, which used to be a standard size for an art fair. Art fair booths are a little larger now, but then we made a video about...
Yeah, go ahead.
We made a video about the piece as well, where we built the house in nature next to a lake on somebody's house, put cameras around it, filmed it going into fog, took the house away another day, filmed it coming out of fog. So when you go into the gallery and sit around it, there's 7 views seeing. You can sit and watch the house disappear in front of you. Goes into the fog, the fog goes away, the house is gone. It's a little bit about the art market, little bit the housing market bubble, this kind of art fair coming into your city, being gone, all this trouble happens, it pull out. And this is about.
So this is another piece. This is a photographic piece called Moons Over Miami, after the.
Does anybody even know what a Denny's is? There's this thing called the Moons Over Miami,
which is a Denny's
so
breakfast.
The title is a joke on that.
But we were looking on Flickr, and we took all the moons. We took as many moons on that night that were art fairs in that city at the time. So we took all those moons.
I think it was 35 art fairs, right?
That was happening in Miami that year. So we took all these different views of the moon from that night, and then we used the moon as the center point and overlapped all of those photos on top of each other.
And this kind of became a stimulus for work to come later, where we started working with the sun. This is equal is greater than divided. A symbol I use a lot, but it's the next kind of topic.
Genre.
And in 2016, a lot happened to us. A lot happened to all of us. There was a new administration. For ourselves, we had a daughter, so now we're thinking about more than just our lives and our selfishness. We're thinking about the future more. And now with the new administration, from our point of view or reality, the future is really bad. So
2016 felt bleak.
So it kind of it changed our work a little bit,
Yeah.
for the better, we hope, or we like to think.
Yeah. So this first piece we're going to show you, these are all money bags that we found in a Trump Plaza Casino in Atlantic City that had been out of business. It was bankrupted and it was desolate. It was for, 4 or 5 years, just sitting empty. And we were allowed to go in it, and we found all these amazing money bags. And so we made them into this flag for us that felt like sort of the antithesis of what sort of Trump was saying at the time, or felt like, he was bashing gays in the military. He was, against all things. So this piece is called
we were reappropriating his material to show support for something he didn't.
Yeah.
Or doesn't.
And so, and this piece is called "It's Not Personal." It's part of a quote that he had said about it's not personal, it's business, or something like that. You want to go into this one?
Go for it.
So this is sort of another segue that we started on, which is we started collecting all these travel posters that we would find in thrift shops or all over. And we started thinking about how people had gazed at these things for hours, sort of thinking about where they could be or, what vacation they might go on. But it's also something that you can never really, once you go on vacation, you never get in that exact place, that it's always this like unattainable picture of reality. And so we started cutting these words out of these different posters.
And the part of the point is that there's this paradise that can't happen, right? Like you think of paradise, but when you go there, it's not really paradise. But the other half of it is that we're making sure that there's no paradise, right? Like in our flying there to travel, we are helping assure that this paradise is going away.
Yeah. So sad.
I don't know if we can say more about that.
Yeah.
Really. But we're also cutting all the logos and the text away from the company itself, right?
Yeah, so you're sort of just left with these whole, sometimes we'll leave the like text holes open.
This is a piece, it was the last piece we made before the pandemic hit the States very hard, right? So we made it in March of 2020, and we'd taken a trip to the south of the United States and seen things that we had not been confronted with physically or even thought of that much, but we made it a point to look at all these Southern monuments, Confederate monuments, and grappled with it. We were there at a residency in Greensboro, North Carolina, a block from Martin Luther King Boulevard. And at the end of Martin Luther King Boulevard is a park with 3 Confederate monuments, which blows my mind, right? But it should blow anybody's mind. So we're trying to think of how to grapple with that, or how to deal with it. What could we do? We couldn't take them down. If we do something to it, it's just going to be undone. So we thought we would kind of try and recontextualize it. So we took this Benjamin Franklin statement and then used the letters via rubbings to make this statement. Justice will not be served until those that are unaffected are as outraged as those that are. And this is kind of our way to try and recontextualize it. Hopefully more is happening, and it's hopefully these monuments are coming down an awful lot in the past 2 years which has been amazing. We also, in a store really close to there, found these postcards that have Washington postmark on it, right, that owned Monticello plantation. So we took those cards that we found in the store and made more rubbings that say, we must build dikes of courage to hold back flood of fear, MLK. And then now this piece is mounted on the front of the museum, like a block from
Telfair Museum.
Telfair Museum, a block from the end of MLK Boulevard, and also where this Confederate monuments are.
So this is sort of circling back to that same method of working that we were using with the moons over Miami, but we were thinking about this. We made this in 2017, right when Trump was putting together all the travel bans, and so we decided that we would take sunsets, which sunsets I think for us represent this idea of a beginning and an end, and a sun is something that we all see and have access to. So we took the sunsets from the 7 countries that were on that travel ban list,
and align them by the sun, by also putting in a sunset taken from the United States. Following that, we made a similar piece, but talking about the 30 countries of citizens that are most affected by DACA. So we took the 30 most the highest number of recipients of DACA, those 30 countries, and then align them again with a sunset of the United States. Do people know what DACA is? Okay. And then from there, we
started this massive project where we were sort of in our studio in Wassaic, New York, which is this teeny tiny little town, and nobody was going anywhere because it was COVID, and we were in our studio, and we're so used to traveling and meeting people and collaborating with other folks that we felt a little shell-shocked. So we decided to do this project where we reached out to an artist in every country in the world.
And we started with UN countries, just as a framework to
so there
reach
was
out to 195 UN countries.
Yeah, there's 195 UN countries, and then we've expanded from there, where we asked those people to take a 7-minute video of the sun at the end of the day from wherever they were. And amazingly, we have over 220 videos now, and so we're working with them in all sorts of different manners. This is a photograph that was actually printed on a solar panel, on a used solar panel.
It's 220 stills of those videos flattened to make one image.
Yeah.
And then from that, this is kind of a short, the reason we asked everybody to shoot a 7-minute film of the sun rather than any arbitrary number is if you do the math of about 200 times 7 minutes, you get about 24 hours, right? So we want to make a 24-hour piece where as the Earth is rotating, the video is following the sun. So wherever the sun is, that's where you're seeing the video.
And for us, this idea of this, we went back to this idea of the sun because the sun was one thing that we all had access to, you know, in a period of COVID and when you're sort of stuck in one spot, you could always see the sun. And to the sun, we were looking at the same exact sun, which sort of, you know, it travels around the world and goes everywhere. So, so that was, I mean, that's not mind-blowing, but somehow it is to me as well, you know.
And it's this immense resource also that we underuse, which we could fix a lot of our problems if we use this resource that we're all staring at together.
Yeah. So this is, so we're partway through our project and we got a call from this company, Little Sun, who is associated with the artist Olafur Eliasson, and he makes these little lamps that distribute solar lamps that he distributes to countries all around the world that don't have equal access to power and electricity, and they wanted to make a promo video.
No, they commissioned 5 artists to make art films.
Art films, yes.
4-minute art films.
4-minute
so
art
we made a
films.
short of this project.
Yeah. So, are we going to see the whole thing, or?
We'll just show you a couple, an excerpt of it, because otherwise. Just kind of the credits in order.
And in those other iterations of the sun pieces we were working on, we were just doing sort of photographs, but in this project it became so important for us to make those connections, and I think it made it a much better work in itself, because we were able to sort of get little glimpses into people's lives, hear the stories. Yeah.
From the, or do you?
No, go ahead.
From that grouping of films, from this collection of over 220 films, we also decided to organize them via their horizon, type of horizon they have, whether it's a low, flat, high, flat, angled left and right, and then into 7 categories, right? So we could make a long horizontal piece that plays similarly, but there's kind of, at times you can almost see all the films at once.
And you'll see more than one sun at the same time. Each film has more than one sun.
This is just a wall with the credits of each artist. Like whenever we show it, of course, we try and credit as much as possible each person involved. There's Lauren taking a photo of it for scale.
With my ugly shoes on.
Those are the most comfortable shoes in the world, though, right? And this is actually where we have an opening right now, like this minute. It just, we're at 6 here, 5 there, and Keto opens right now. So we thought we should show this because we're not there, so we're kind of collectively at our opening right now.
Welcome to Keto.
So this is just a walkthrough of the 7-channel video, larger. And it was just sent on WhatsApp, so the
Quality's not.
but it's great. And like Lauren said before about the sun being kind of the sunset kind of representing the beginning and the ending of things. We think about that with title credits a lot. Like the end of a film is this thing that kind of brings you to the end of this suspension of reality, right? Back into reality. Or now as films and shows kind of go into one another, this seam has been erased, right?
I think you need to stop that.
Okay.
I think that at the end of, in Hollywood films, they used to have the ending credit, and the end would pop up, and it was a signal like, all right, we're done with this film. You can leave this one reality and then go back to your own. And now, when we're watching films on Netflix or this and that, it's just constant. So you're sitting down, and it just keeps going. You know, you watch one show, it goes to another show, to another show, to another show. Oops, that's not it. So we made a piece about the end.
Which will obviously put that into our talk. Right now, you should be thinking about your questions because maybe we'll have about 15 more seconds of our talk where you get to relax and not have to hear us talk. We could go the full 12 minutes if you want.
A lot of our video work is, I don't know, repetitive, but it's sort of meant to be, you know, like this thing that you enter out of, in and out of. Does that make any sense? Yeah.
Yeah?
The end, sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
Hi, thank you for
Thank
your talk.
you.
I was wondering if you guys could talk a little more about the installation process of your like larger collage works and like how you guys go about designing for site-specific spaces and like how collaboration plays a role in that as well. And like, I guess I was confused as to like whether or not some of those, like the image you showed at the corner, are those like prints or are they like are those?
Those are actual. Those are actual catalogs that we've cut out. So they had a ton of different catalogs, and so that we're just cutting them into tiny little pieces. You know, those are all like less than an inch thick.
We have a thing called a guillotine for printmakers, where you'd cut a stack of prints, but we use it for kind of everything we collage. But like we stack the books in there and we cut the bindings, and then we organize each page of that book.
The working with books was so hard because you had to like cut the binding off the books, and then you'd have to separate each page that you wanted into their stacks, and then you would get the little bit from that page that you wanted. But in this, can you go back to a whole image?
Sure.
We made this on panels. We had measured the space beforehand and then made it mostly on panels. Screwed it directly to the wall, basically, and then had like fix-it kits that happened to make it seamless. But like on smaller, so a lot of our patterning is also determined on how much material we have, because it's important to us that it isn't a print of something. I mean, obviously those are prints of something, but to us it's important because they've made 400 catalogs and now they have 200 still left over, and that's like, to us, that's the history of that place. Like, that's important that they're left over and we didn't print them. And so a lot of times, like, if we only have like a certain amount of something, we can't make a big line, so that will help determine like how where we use that piece, where we use that particular piece of the catalog.
Like, we equate like our amount of different parts of the collection to having like a pretty empty tube of paint here and having like a gallon of paint here. Like, we know we can make a giant rainbow
Orange
arched
thing.
wall, right? Because we have a lot of that material, but we only have a very little of this blue page that, so then we decide to make these smaller parts. The collaborative process you were asking about with that, like with the institution,
With the institution or with us?
I guess I was thinking more between you two, like if there are roles you tend to take on more like the logistical side, because it seems like a lot of your work would be in partnering like with institutions and organizations.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
we started out as, like as far as like logistically in the studio, I know more about woodworking. Lauren is an amazing metal worker. And
which we don't use metal, so
we don't
that's
use a lot of
not.
those things, but we actually started with the dream car. That was
Yeah.
exactly how we
True.
started. It was a
True,
metal
true,
frame
true.
with wood over
And also,
it.
I'm really, really good at detail, and you're not, and you're better at bigger picture.
I'm more of an engineer, and Lauren is incredibly patient and detailed.
I like to just meditate, zone out, not think about it, just glue, glue, glue. But our role with institutions is they're usually so generous and let us just go for it. Like, we didn't have to come in here with an idea. I mean, we came in and we said, okay, we're going to use these materials, but they had no idea what it was going to look like.
Somehow
At
with
all.
three institutional installations, one we're about to start, this one and another, somehow we didn't have to give drawings beforehand. They were like, you take your material, we know how you work.
We trust you, we'll do it.
But
the one
in reality, that's not usually how it
Yeah,
works.
and actually,
Usually
the one
they-
we're working on right now, that we have to have all these drawings and preliminary meetings and this and that,
That was separate, but yeah,
is going terribly.
that's true.
Because they don't trust, I mean, it's not about trust, but they have to dot all their Ts, and we're not used to working where we have to have, it's so much more work to do everything digitally to like see the thing beforehand. So we're just like laying things out messy on a piece of wood, making these lines, and then it comes together somehow. But when we have to have it all planned out, it's way harder.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth with a governmental institution that we're making a piece for, and it is,
It's so hard.
it's more difficult, just because it has
Yeah.
to go through committee, and it has to meet standards, has to meet safety, has to meet
Lasts for 100
everybody.
years.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that they can be incredibly excruciating long processes that are fulfilling in the end. But
Maybe, we'll see.
we've been incredibly lucky with people giving us carte blanche of
Yeah.
spaces.
Which is, I think, how most artists want to work, right? Like, to have that freedom and not have to, like, be completely hemmed into something. It sort of takes away the fun for me. For you. Who else? Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So you're like the name like the ghost of like it was like really compelling to me. And as an artist, I always find that you get so inspired by a project, but sometimes you get lost in the process of the project, and the project that you become so excited about actually becomes a dream. And so I'm curious, as you've done all this incredible work, have you ever had a project that you had been really excited about, but ended up kind of fading away, being a dream as something that you're just like looking at that never was accomplished?
Definitely.
Yes.
And like,
So,
yeah.
what is that?
Yeah. And like, how do you get, or like, how do you
Yeah.
then overcome that and try to see through such a grand project?
Yeah, well, I think, this is a twofold thing. I think working collaboratively, sometimes I have a dream, and Adam has a different dream. And then we have to like battle it out to make our dreams sort of coincide, which I think in the end makes the work better because we have somebody that we're like really honest with and can make it happen. That's not actually your question though.
About specific projects, we, a couple things, right? One, we have a dream to make a project using engagement rings and wedding rings, right, of unsuccessful partnerships. And then
We haven't gotten any yet.
we haven't gotten any, but we did get a collection of invitations, wedding invitations. We got a collection of that. We really grappled with it, and it ended up being flooded and sandy, and we saw that as a sign to kind of let it go. And
We
then,
also have our whole, our whole studio right now is filled with political signs. You know those like the plastic placards that you find? I don't know what's gonna ever happen with them. I just don't know. And Nina Cacciatorian made that beautiful piece with them, and I think ours would be like so different. But I think there's so much there in that material. But we've both been so bogged down that we can't, and it's big, like there's a lot of them. And they're big and they're gross because they've been outside for 3 months. And yeah, we also have a ton of the trophy parts. We use some of the marbles for those pieces that you saw, but we have the plastic parts that I think would make such beautiful things, but I don't know what I don't know.
yeah, that's been a dream we've been like collecting on for 10 years. We have
Yeah.
thousands of them,
Yeah.
and we have not figured out the right object.
But for sometimes that happens to us. Like somebody gave us all these baseball cards, and we were like, I don't know, and we just held on to them for a while, and then we started thinking about baseball cards and their improper team names, and so we did a bunch of work around that. And so sometimes you just have to sit with it for a while and let it be, because
We were also given from the Ho-Chunk Nation, they had a lot of playing cards, but they were all white, right? The backside were white. They donated several boxes to us, and we're like, what are we going to do? Like, there's no pattern. How are we going to line these up? How are we going to make this? And then after a lot of like failed dreams with this, we ended up just putting them together and patterning. The pattern ended up being the line between all these white cards that ended up looking like Agnes Martin drawings. Agnes Martin makes these drawings that are paintings that are all white with kind of really delicate, amazing, just graphite lines.
they
And
weren't
we're-
as good as Agnes Martin's, but
Nothing will ever be as good as Agnes Martin.
But-
But I was saying we're referencing that, and eventually that like dream that kept failing on us ended up being successful. So like, I guess what I'm just saying is like, if the dream keeps failing, like don't
just keep
like,
going.
keep making failures,
Or
because that's
just
the best
have a
like,
lot
thing
of
you can make in the
storage,
studio.
'cause-
anyway.
We have so much storage, it's awful. But do you want to hear something interesting about playing cards? I just learned this from a magician that I watched at my daughter's school, and then I looked it up, and it's true. And we've been working with playing cards for years.
Oh, yeah.
That there's 365 playing cards to represent the 365 days of the year. There's 4 suits to represent the 4 seasons. There's another thing that was
The 13
yeah, there's
celestial,
yeah, what's the 13?
13 celestial
There's
signs.
13 in each
There's 13
suit.
cards in
There's
each suit, yeah.
13 cards in each suit, the rest, yeah. I was like, what? Sorry, that's my like wonderment. He said it much smoother than I did. Any other questions? Oh, yay.
Hi, I'm interested in just hearing more about the process behind your more recent like digital photo montage works, like especially the sun and moon pieces. Especially just whether and why you're doing all of the sorting and organization of these big data sets by hand when there are maybe automated tools that could also do that. I'm wondering like what about that process feels special and intentional and important to you?
To me, I feel like we're, or do you?
No, you should totally answer this.
I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm fooling myself, but I feel like working with it by hand makes it more unique, makes it, well, one is that like we're choosing by aesthetics rather than just what, like a data set we could print in, right? Like by the brightest sun first to the dimmest or placement of the sun. There's also a lot of movement in the video. And so we're choosing, we're kind of putting videos together without movement and with movement. The interesting thing about the prompt and talking to all the artists is we asked for a still video, so asked people to set it down, set a phone down on a thing and take a still video, and only about half the people listened. And so thankful that people didn't listen because it would have been the most boring film.
Yeah.
Like, like we were thinking we wanted it, the sun to never move, right? So we would align it for 24 hours and the sun would stay in the same place, and it would have been so boring, right? So all this movement and putting that data together of the moving and the not moving and something that's too dark and something that's light. Also, we learned the hard way of, we also need to be careful which videos to put next to other videos. We accidentally put 2 videos too close together. That resulted in somebody pulling out of the project because they didn't want to be next to this other country for political reasons. And so all that kind of stuff now, like there's so much information all of a sudden that I felt like we couldn't put that through a process, right? And then also we're kind of like, we're big collaborators at all times, right? And I feel like we're actually collaborating more when our hands are on it.
And I feel like it's I don't know, it's just humanizing because we're taking an idea, we're just taking an image, so like the image of the sun, and we're like putting an idea behind that. We're like giving it some sort of meaning, and based on where that photograph is taken or whatever, that's what gives it, you know, the meaning behind the piece. Also, I don't know how to do the computer data sorting, truthfully.
I'm the Adobe Premiere person.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's smarter ways to do it, but for us, it's how it works.
It also is kind of synonymous to how we work with the paper, right? Like we work analog, and that's why we're not good at this part of the process where we make a drawing for a space, right? Like we aren't good at that. Like people ask us to make a drawing of what we would do to this wall, and any drawing we make is horse shit compared to what we could actually do to it. Like we'll come in, we'll tackle it, but
Yeah.
like we're
It's
just
funny
so
'cause our
much better
pieces
at analog operations,
Yeah.
even when they're digital.
And our pieces, like that is so analog, but it does look like it's digitally made in a way, so. But not when you get close to it. I don't know.
That's a great question, though.
Anyone else? Yeah, okay.
Thank
Thanks, Matt.
you. Have a great night.